Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Got a really good show for you today. I've been trying to sit down with Andy Hediger, one of the original gangsters, really, in our sport. Was there in the very, very beginning designing gliders for Advance and became one of the Red Bull kind of Acro aces, won a World Cup in 2000, flies everything, trikes and sailplanes and you name it, hang gliders. He flies literally everything. A whole bunch of aircraft I'd never even heard of. Did a monster flight in a caravan from Red Bull headquarters in Salzburg all the way across Scotland and Greenland and all the way down to where he's living now in Argentina, where he set up a school. And we talk about some of his crazy accidents, the latest with Hernan Pitico, and his movie Airman is just unbelievable. So you'll see that in the show notes. We bring it up quite a bit in the show. But before we get to that, I've got a whole bunch of, I've got a few things of housekeeping, and a couple of them not even related really too much to flying, but it's been something that has been kind of a big piece of my life lately, and thought you might be interested in it. When I did the 2015 X-Alps, some of you that followed that or saw the blogs, that kind of thing, I had a lot of trouble with inflammation, just the stress and the pounding every day, and I was super fit going into it, but every night, and we had trained for this and we'd done all these kind of simulations beforehand, but every night every morning I would wake up and just a mountain of sweat, like literally like lakes, and just and it was disgusting, but it was just my body trying to get rid of all that inflammation, and didn't really understand why that was happening. I mean, my feet got like 3 sizes bigger. They didn't fit in any of my shoes. Of course, they got super, super blistered. Looked like somebody beat on them with a hammer. So anyway, I just put up with it in 2015, but in 2017, we decided to really take it seriously and figure out what the problem was and what might be causing some of that, if it was just normal, because I know a lot of the athletes have the whole swelling with their feet. But anyway, I went to a doctor down in Pocatello and did all these lab tests and blood tests and got really kind of fascinated with the ketogenic diet and fat adapted diet, and that's becoming kind of a big thing in endurance stuff. So not very related to just standard paragliding, but in that whole search for nutrition and figuring out what had happened when we went in the 2017 race this time around, I stayed away from what powered me a lot in 2015 was carbohydrates, just a lot of goos and Coke and sugar and all these things to kind of help me keep from bonking, but didn't realize, you can get away with that when it's like an ultra or it's a 100-miler or something. When you're doing it day after day after day after day, turns out that stuff is, you wouldn't eat that stuff normally, so why would you do it in a 10-day race? So in the 2017 event, I pretty much stuck with whole foods, a lot of protein, a lot of fat. Anyway, I'll get to the point here. In the studying for that, I was listening to a ton of podcasts about nutrition and listening to all these shows about kind of ultra athletes and what they did, and came across this book right before the X-Alps when Maddie was pregnant with Fallon, a little girl that I had in August, and he was talking about how critical nutrition was with mothers and toddlers, but also when in the 9 months of gestation. So I listened to this podcast, and he mentioned this book by Catherine Shanahan called Deep Nutrition, and that's the point, is if you haven't read it or haven't heard about it, go out and get this book. I can basically sum it up. It's a massive book, and it's got a lot of science. It is not conspiracy theory type stuff, but if you believe, as I do, that Big Ag's got a lock on a lot of the shit food that we eat and processed foods and the problems with all of that, she takes it step by step, what's wrong with all that with the processed foods. But the massive takeaways and the two big things in the book are vegetable oil and sugar. And vegetable oil, I did not realize this, that's kind of sold as this heart healthy thing. This was the whole advent of the margarine back in the 40s and 50s. And vegetable oil is, sunflower oil, safflower oil, soy, palm. God, there's a canola, of course, is the worst, but really there are 3 oils that are good for you. That's olive oil, peanut oil, and coconut oil. If it's not one of those, it's basically the cause of cancer on down, if you believe the book. So if you believe the science, which is pretty solid at this point, and just been covered up by big ag, like it's like half the calories in granola. It's in every protein bar you've ever eaten. So all those goos that I was eating and all that sugar is pretty much loaded up with either sunflower or safflower oil, which are your bodies just can't handle them. So if you've got a little kid or you're interested in health, I realize this is off topic with paragliding. Sorry for those of you who don't care, just yawning right now. But I found it really scary and very interesting, and you'd be surprised that stuff's in everything. And when you heat it up, of course, like French fries, it's way, way, way worse. So have a look. Again, the book is Deep Nutrition by Catherine Shanahan, and especially for those of you who have kids, or especially little kids, super important. Next topic. Quite a few people have been asking me how to stay warm. It's spring in the northern hemisphere here, and it's pretty tough to stay warm when your hands are above your heart. And people have been asking, if I have any tips or tricks for that. I don't know if any of this is magic, but what I have learned, for those of you interested, send me an email and I can send you my list of what I wear. It's all Patagonia stuff because I find that they make the best stuff and it lasts forever. It is a little bit more expensive, but you'll never need to replace it because it's warranted forever. But I kind of go with the layering system. So if I'm doing hike and fly, my first layer is not going to be cotton. It'll be like merino wool or one of the blends, but the blends get pretty stinky. They do make them better now, so they're kind of like, they call it anti-stink. But that first layer is a really thin layer. Maybe you saw it in the Alaska Traverse, that blue shirt that gets all torn up. But like merino wool works really well, or like a capilene works really well, just super thin. And then I'll usually have another one of those in my bag, so when I get to the top, I can take off the sweaty one, put it on a rock, let it dry out for a bit, and put on the dry one. And then next layer would be like a synthetic or a fleece, something not too thick, but usually with a hood. And then like a nano puff or a nano air, so a real lightweight down. If it's going to be a super cold day, then I'll go with a big puff. And in the Patagonia line, it's called the Hyper Puff. And they have great ones with a hood. They're down, so you can really pack them down. The Hyper Puff is actually synthetic, so it's pretty good in the rain and that kind of thing. But anything big, anything just that really puffy. The mistake then a lot of people make is they put speed sleeves over that, which makes sense for racing, but you don't want to compact that down. Let it stay out. The trick really in my mind with keeping your hands warm is that you've got to keep your core warm. You don't have a chance if your core is not warm. So if you're flying a pod, you don't need to worry about your legs too much. If you're not, then you've got to bundle up your legs the same as you do your top. If you have a pod, I never find it's much, I don't find it necessary to do much more than long underwear and then my classic board shorts that you see in all the films that I've always got on. That's because when I land, I'll take off the long underwear and then I've got something comfortable to hike in. But if I'm racing or I'm in a comp or there's retrieve, I'll just fly in Carhartts or, Patagonia's workwear pants or something. I don't worry about it. But for, if I'm going to be hiking, then I definitely like to have the shorts. If it's going to be really cold, then I'll go with the long underwear and like a shell pants, like a ski pant, but not anything real heavy. I find it's just too much. And if you get low anytime during the flight, you're just going to be sweating so much. You get too sticky. And then of course you get even colder when you get high. Of course, oxygen helps a ton. If you're, be flying anywhere high and in thin air, then oxygen really helps you stay warm. Hands, so I fly with those Zanier gloves. They're super expensive and they're hopeless. Sorry guys that make those. I know they're trying, but I've tried a bunch of different battery operated heated gloves. None of them work. They all suck. Black Diamond put out a pair and they recalled them, and the Zanier ones I can't tell if there's any heat coming from it at all. So total waste of money in my mind. Better a pair of mitts is, of course, mittens are much better than gloves. And on the really cold days, I'll have some hand warmers that I'll shake up real good beforehand and then put them on the back of my hand so they don't mess with how I'm grabbing my toggles and stuff. A warning on that, though. I had an incident, and a couple people have had much worse incidents, but I was flying here in Sun Valley a few summers ago. Really big day. I was trying to stay out of a cloud up at around 18,000. I was trying to stay below 18,000 to stay legal because it was a pretty good day. I was with Nick Grease and Nate Scales and had a massive blowout, and it took me about 3,000 feet to sort it out, but in about the first 1,000 feet of trying to sort this out, I was in a really locked in bad spiral with a huge cravat, and I was trying to throw. I was trying to go for my reserve, and I had big mittens on, and I had put my hands up through the toggles, which I try not to do when I have big gloves on because of exactly what happened here. And so I got completely twisted up, and I was so twisted up I couldn't get my hands out of the brakes, so I couldn't get to the reserve, and so luckily was able to sort it. But that could have been pretty awful if I, could have never gotten to the reserve. So, and I've heard of people I've heard of that happening to people where they weren't able to get out of that, and then they spiral all the way to the ground. So much better if you're using bigger gloves, or even better anyway, to just grab the toggles on the outside and do kind of like a little half wrap, and then grab the lines with your fingers, and so your hands are never in the toggles. But especially that's important with big gloves, because if you start getting twisted up, you can't get your hands out. So but yeah, mittens, or big gloves. The problem with that, of course, is it starts to get pretty hard to fly on the bees, on your toggles and stuff. So, it's a delicate balance. And, what you'll see with the guys that are flying, huge lines in Pakistan when they're super tall and they don't have to worry about Class 1 airspace, you see all those guys having the like down sleeves from your coat, which is brilliant. That's great. You got to be super anal about that when you launch, because there have been way more than several accidents with people getting those kind of wrapped around their lines or screwed up, because it's a big bulky thing you've got to worry about. So you can either put them on after you launch, or just be really careful when you do launch. But the problem with those is they're so bulky that, of course, you really can't fly on the bees and stuff. So totally inappropriate for racing, of course, and maybe you're just not really worried about using too much speed bar and that kind of thing when you're up tall, so maybe that's not that big a deal. But I certainly like to have my hands available to use the bees, especially if we're flying a two-liner. So anyway, that's my thoughts on layering. And lastly, usually I talk about supporting the show at the end of the show, but in this case, we've just put up a store on the cloudbasemayhem.com. Go and check that out. We've got some really cool, I'm doing all my t-shirts now through Patagonia, because they're the only real supplier I could find that makes truly sustainable shirts, and 100% organic. And the last run I had, the Cloud-Based Mayhem shirts, I did them all online, and I just wasn't really that psyched with them with the fit, and after you washed them, they kind of shrank a little bit and stuff. So these are great. I've been using them on the boat and with my other business for ages, and they're all printed up with the Mayhem logo and cool little tagline on there. So go check it out on the website. And we've also got Annika Herndon makes these killer recaps hats, these Cloud-Based Mayhem hats. Every one is individual. They're totally unique. These are things that the Patreon supporters get at certain levels anyway. But if you just want to support us through PayPal one time, or you just want a shirt or a hat, this is another way you can support us and kind of spread the word. There's not really much money made there. There's not a lot of margin, but it'd be great to have you in our stuff and showing other people that you're listening to the podcast. So check that out, cloudbasemayhem.com. Check out the store and order some swag, and I'll get it off to you. And so let's get into this show with Andy Hediger. Like I said, we've been trying to connect for literally months and months and months, and finally able to do so. He was down in Argentina. He's had a really long recovery after this crazy trike accident when Hernan Pitico, another Red Bull athlete, was doing a jump out of a D-bag deployment out of the trike, and everything goes really bad, and it's all on video. Again, you got to see this movie Airman. It's just unbelievable. But Andy's done an amazing 3-4 year now recovery after this crazy accident, and still going strong, going hard. And he's got 4 beautiful little kids, and this is just a really heartfelt, deep, fantastic talk from literally the OG. I mean, he has seen and done it all, and has a lot of cool things to say and a lot of great stories to share, and I think you're going to enjoy this. So without further ado, please enjoy this talk with Andy Hediger. Andy, it is just, we've been working at this for months, haven't we? It's been a long time to try to make this happen, but it sounds like you've got a whole bunch of wind in your backyard there in Argentina. So the opportunity came up, and I just watched your movie, amazing movie, Airman, that is just an incredible documentary of flying, not just paragliding, but just the whole thing. And it's in some ways a real tearjerker. We'll get into that part of the movie here in a bit, but thank you so much for coming on the Mayhem and sharing, I'm sure, what will be some amazing stories. I thought maybe a great place to start would be to just start with the very beginning. You know, you worked for Advance. You were part of, what made, you were right in the very beginning of paragliding, like we talked about before we started recording. It's a very proud thing. Over 30 years ago, you started flying and really designing gliders. Let's start there.
Yeah, 33 years ago right now, or a little bit more even. I just finished my school process, Swiss Army process, and then I know that I will not go to the normal kind of life. I was surfing a lot. I was shaping my surfboards, and then I wanted to make my own sails for my surfboards, windsurfing, of course. Yeah, and I went to a sewing factory in Rehetobel, which is in Appenzellerland, and just to start learning about how to sew and how to use a sewing machine and those kinds of materials. At this time, a skydiver named Guido, he was a skydiver, very famous skydiver, Swiss national skydive team, and he said, oh, look, we should try to make from this 7-cell skydiver the same one with the zero porosity materials. So then boss, Hans-Ueli Zuberbühler, told me we should make this and we should copy this. And this was the time when I thought, but how it will work? They will not jump out of the aircraft. For me, skydiving was something that I didn't want to know nothing about. I was really scared about skydiving at this time, as I did not really understand actually what is this big game of playing in the air. And so it starts, and at this time then I came together with Roman Bühler, and we built Swing, which was called Swiss Wing, which still exists today as Swing, German manufacturer today, but the start of Swing was Swiss Wing. And before that, then, during this process, we make the Inferno 5.5. And in the process, then, we make the work together to make it as short as possible. Then I leave this Zuberbühler sewing manufacturer, and just to start be full-time only building paragliders with Roman. And with him, then, we built Paratech. With Paratech, we make the first paraglider who flew 1 to 6. We know that a paraglider of 1 to 6, now we just passed nearly 3 years from Zuberbühler sewing factory to Paratech in Stad, in St. Gallen. And this 1 to 6 paraglider flew from Rorschacher Berg, which is a small hill where you have 500 meters level difference and 3 kilometers down to the lake. So if you reach the lake, you flew 1 to 6, and this was our goal, and we reached this goal. But during this project, also, we started to find out the problem of when paragliding actually starts. It was more a sport for mountaineering people, guys who walked up and want to glide down to the valley. So this was the start. So we had at this time, if you look to old magazines, you can see all these mountain people with mountain helms on. And with these old, the glasses we used at this time. But then we start to make flights and start soaring, ridge starts, thermaling, and paragliding really, I believe, then this was 89, 90 when it starts to grow, and so many telecables in Switzerland who are nearly die starts to relieve, reburn by more and more paragliding people used to get up the mountain and fly down. And in 91, we make this big film, which is called Duell in den Wolken, which was made from the Swiss-German TV. And this was getting out on TV station. In 91, we had the first world championship. It, was Robbie Whittle, Ueli Wiesmeyer, and Andy Hediger, and Urs Hari. And, we are, at this time, we went those big pilots. And in Saint-André, the first world championship, 5 world championship, which was, we flew nearly 90-kilometer tasks at this time, was just, wow, flying incredibly tasks. But now, from 84, when I started, 85 to 91, it was just also nearly 6 years past. And the 6 years went, I think, the really strongest paragliding growing process, from a 7-cell paraglider up to a 21-cell paraglider. Our first 21-cell, which calls Airbus. And then, the progress who flew 1 to 6, which have started to bring many problems to the people for flying, as, the how we said, the conditions of flying a 7-cell, very low performance paraglider up to a 1 to 6 changed completely the piloting. So then the accident started. This was the time when I thought I must start to make safety courses. So I went to look for a place over the lake, and then I get to Monte Generoso in Lugano. It was a small train driving up, and we had 1,300 meters. So people gliding out, they arrived at this time with 800 meters. In the future, of course, with much more as the performance increased. And I learned to the people, and mostly people who are just finished the school, how to fly a paraglider out of normal control. And so I was also at the creator of this SIV, and then I saw to the federation. I get also in with Alain Soler, with test pilot for the federation, and with Alain Soler I grew in all the process, how to test paragliders, how to certify them, how to get a safer sport. And look just today, it's incredible where we reach.
There's this beautiful scene at the very last scene in the movie. You're on a trampoline in your backyard, it looks like, with your family and 4 kids. And one of your little cuties goes, my dad has an awesome job. Maybe what is your job now today? Let's go from 30 years ago to now and navigate some of that space for me. Like, when did the relationship with Didi at Red Bull begin? And it just seems like that's been a major component of your life.
I think when I get into 91, this World Championship in Saint-André, which I finished second behind Robbie Whittle, it was then a big bang start. Then I meet Hannes Arch. He came from Austria, visit me. He wanted to know about Paratech, and a big friendship starts at this time. And he just start living and stay with me in the sewing factory, and I've learned him flying paragliding. He brings me out together with Ulrich Grill, our photographer, at this time, and we had the first meeting with Didi Mateschitz in 92. And then when it starts, actually, our Red Bull Acro team. And then, I'm more the person who is a visionist of flying. I have started to make maneuvers and aerobatic maneuvers, and I could even speak during these maneuvers. So when we start filming all those test parts and talking to, I just discovered that I have these capacities and I could transmit all my experiences and transmitting. And then one part was certification, tests, development, and the other part then was to start to make films, photo shootings. And with Hannes, who had the vision of this Acro team, Ulrich, who was the photographer, and I was more the man who prepared and flew and made the actions, the ULI Gegenshots. So, and then we get in Guido German. So we build it and bring together skydiving, hang gliding, paragliding, from that base jumping. And we start our circuit with a trike where we could fly in over all those Red Bull, these first competitions or meetings. He organized the shows, for example, in Salzburg, where is this ski jump place. We flew in with making aerobatic shows with live documentation, musicians, and some snowboarder. And this was the first event that Red Bull organized, and we just flew in there. And then the Flugtag starts. So it was the very, very beginning of Red Bull, actually. It was just known in Austria, and afterwards, who all knows the Red Bull story, they know that once Red Bull was forbidden then, and this makes, of course, a very special effect. Afterwards, this, I was just athlete, and I receive a support from a person who believes in our vision to bring those sports together and to transmit the feeling to dance in the air. Today, you ask me, I fly from caravan, sailplanes, small aircraft, trikes. I'm skydiver. Now I'm strongly wingsuiting. Of course, not the proximity, but from the aircraft. And, I just like, for me, it's just like a good musicist. A good musicist is a band who can touch an instrument, several kind of instruments. And be an airman or an air sports artist, it's like a little bit the same vision, to know that the air, it's our swimming pool or our air pool, where you jump in and you fly through. But I can just advance one, of course, of your question, it will come for sure. Paragliding, it's still the most wonderful and beautiful and most perfect wing that exists on Earth.
That was my next question. Is I've got it written down here: the trike and the hang gliders and the Swift and the Virus, Sailplanes, Archaeopteryx, the Tar. You fly them all, but the paragliders, you're still your favorite.
I got then. My accident stopped me for nearly 3 years. And then I started making a few little flights, but very scared about my legs. And now that I'm trained every day, I get them stronger. And this year, actually this season, also with Advance, who started to retake a little bit on high performance prototypes, I have just rediscovered how much I love paragliding and how beautiful and how simple this wing is, and more in today where airspaces are restricted, where everywhere, you need to be, it's so complicated. And with the paraglider, it's still this feeling of be free, you have this little bag with these lights, light paraglider stuff. You get some lightness harness and light wings. You get just 4, 5, 7 kilos. You walk somewhere and you take off, and this is just no words to explain. It's beautiful to be on a sailplane with 20 meters wingspan and 1:60 glide ratio, but you are limited all the time. Archaeopteryx, I love the Archaeopteryx to foot launch and fly thermals that you can either fly with paraglider for this very, very super top low minimum sync performance. But you need a trailer, Now, of course, they are electrical ones, but if I go back to paragliding, I can fly, and then it's like I land here, and I can walk.
Yeah.
And I'm by myself, and I can get some water, some fruit, something to eat, to smoke, whatever I need, and I'm just free. And that's what I feel is paragliding is. That's why paragliding, at least, is so strong and so big, and is still growing so much everywhere. And today, all my students, they came here and they want to know about flying. They start with paragliding. This is the first step.
That's the first step. Andy, I was gonna you brought up your accident. I was gonna bring that up later in the show, but because you brought it up, I'd love to hear that scene with you and Hernan and what happened. Those of you listening, if you haven't seen the movie, you'll find the link to it in the show notes. It's just an amazing documentary, super powerful. And the scene of when things go bad with you and Hernan, it's just it's terrifying. Just amazing that you both lived. You of course you broke your feet really badly, and like you said, a 3-year kind of recovery or more, I guess, still going. But how much of that was mental? You have this line in the movie: if you don't take the time to think it through, you're going to fuck it up. And my girlfriend was watching last night with me. I was showing her when you jumped out of the reserve before it slammed into the water tower. I mean, just the heads up presence there was just terrific. And I don't think many people would have had the the wherewithal to make that move, because obviously really scary, and you timed it perfectly, but you still got pretty hurt. I'm just wondering, a very common theme on the show is talking to people who have had an accident, because it's just a part of this sport that it's not inevitable by any means, but a lot of people unfortunately have been hurt, and it seems like the recovery is often much more so in the head, in the mind.
Yeah. Look, if I'm very honest, I had several accidents. And I has been part in analyzing accidents in the Swiss Hang Gliding Federation. I think in life we know that we can do however what we want, and we can die on a heart attack, we can die on a brain attack, we can die at a truck, get crashed into our car, our bicycle. What I never do, for example, I never go bicycling on the road. Impossible that I go with a bicycle to a road. And in Argentina either. But then if you go and fly, you are by your own. So the risk to be catched from another airplane, it's very small. But, those primary accidents that I had, that was to my back twice time. Then I had accidents after Bettina dies. It was I was in coma for several days. But I don't know why. Let's say somebody wants that I continue, so I continuing, and then you just grow with that, and that's why I all the time say, feel fear. It's natural. We must feel this part of be just. I should be very concentrated what I do. And this is a part of life. And afterwards, now this last accident, which was filmed, shows one more that if you don't sing your things well, or if you feel that somebody is not really as it should be, you should not doing. Yeah. So if you are drunk and you drive, you can do it, but you know that you're doing a bullshit. Maybe if you arrive at home and the next day and say, wow, how I reach my home driving back. I think, to make a comparison, how many times people are doing this kind of things, and not only driving, I think in a lot of other part in our lives. Yeah. Then afterwards, if you survive, it might in this part, which is filmed now with the trike, when this happens, I was feeling that we are doing bullshit. I know this.
So you had the sense before you even started, like something's wrong.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I do also explain it a little bit in the
Yeah,
film
you
now.
did.
I try to analyze. And I thought, look, we had to so many D-bag. I was the developer of the D-bag. We and Hannes, actually Hannes in white invented, and I sewed the first D-bags. When I jumped out from a balloon with a tandem paraglider, at this time with Bettina, I thought, yeah, but we could jump out. We make a small bag. And Hannah said, okay, let's do it. And we designed the D-bag. And then we start to jump out from the trike with the D-bag. And we make hundreds of D-bag jumps from the trike, afterwards from the balloon, from the helicopter, from the bridges, from either paragliding. We went on Red Bull Vertigo. I remember this was maybe 94, 5, something like that. We take off 3 on a paraglider. Then I released with D-bag hanging on me Uli Gegenschatz, dropping him out. This was just never seen before. And we had make all this progress, making a nice work. And then here I start to make the Red Bull Acro team of Latino America, together with Hernan Pitoco, Nico Lopez. Then we built this Red Bull aerobatics team. And that's when those athletes get into Red Bull. We made several shows, over 100,000 of people in Santiago, in Buenos Aires. And then here, one day, in our garden, on a Monday, Hernan wanted to change the system, and then he put this belt between D-bag and himself to be more comfortable. The reason he wanted to do that was, I was agree, if you have to fly far away into a show, it's very uncomfortable. Yeah. But it wasn't never a problem, as we have done it during years. And I thought, this belt will fuck you up. And I know that, but I was never strong enough to say, I just look for another pilot. Do it with somebody other. Andy, you start to be old. Oh, Andy, you start to be, and I start to be really older, actually. In my brain, I'm still like, I don't know, 22 now, but maybe 28, 30. I'm end of months, I'm 52 and still alive. However, then this shit happens. And then when it happens and I lost conscience and I saw that I'm dead. Then my conscience came back, as I have very, very strong negative G's, yeah. And I get to the emergency handle and I thought, fuck, emergency handle. My emergency chute is expired since years. I was thinking this, and I went and I just get to this handle against all these forces. And when I hear the explosion, I said, wow, it was just orgasmico.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was looking, and where is this fucking chute? And it just passed. And if you look the video and
straight down.
The rocket went straight down, but the baddest configuration. And it passed just by side. And it did not hang in. However, opened, and I'm hanging there. And when I'm hanging out there, I say, okay, now back to Earth, everything is okay. I was just very angry, and I was just how we said the word when you said bad words, when you are just fucking bullshit, and I was just cheating out, yeah. And then I saw those water tanks, and they laughed, and they said, no, I can't believe.
The odds.
I get into this water tank. No, look all the space I have, And then I stopped loving, and I concentrate me. I said, man, if I get in those tanks, I was even in the water, of course. Why I did not jump in the water? You know why? Why we put a top on the tanks with some steel cables against the birds. So this was, how we said, covered. And those steels, I thought, if I jump and I get one of these steels, I'm cut like a salami.
Yeah, you're dead.
And I thought, okay, I must jump off. But then was two of those tanks. So I need to wait that I jump past the first to jump, and that I needn't crash in the second one. However, it works. I'm here. I'm talking to you. Then to get back to the recovering, to all those, you have family, you have your children, you have your project, you have many things going on, growing all this inversion we have done, bringing a caravan to Argentina. Hernan had jumped out from the caravan with paraglider. I don't know if you heard about this, 21,000 feet. It was so nice history for me, It was so nice. Paragliding burns about skydiving, but paragliding also gives back to skydiving so many development of how to sew profiles. Look, these high performance skydive rigs today, they are like that through paragliding development. We have done so many things, and then I had this bad accident which stops me, and you think this is just the end, but actually it was just the beginning of a new era. Now I walk sometimes like a very old man, but I walk and I can fly, I can jump, I could take off even the Archaeopteryx by my feet on zero wind conditions. This is just amazing, and it shows me that, what we have inside the head, brain, or however, our center is so interesting how it works, and how I think we also can, if you have more or less a good health, you can just be influenced to be positive, to look forward. But I must also be very honest today with this project. After all things who happens, I sometimes said, oof, should I not have been just go forward with paragliding, only paragliding. As paragliding, at least I like that, now I have a prototype that I received from Advance, and I can just work a little bit on it and flying and make some knots and change. And, this is just, for me, it's so beautiful, so nice work.
Simple.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very simple. As wing, it's very simple. Yeah. But it gives me, it's bring me back to the very beginning.
That's kind of cool that it's come full circle. Andy, how much, you've lost a lot of friends. You've already mentioned them, Hannes, Whaley, Guido. Do you, were their deaths partly because, is any of it because of the pressure of Red Bull, or the pressure of, always doing something new and performance and, kind of pushing the limits? Or is that just built into you guys anyway? Would that have been not inevitable, but you see what I'm saying? Without Red Bull as a player, would it be the same thing?
Gavin, Red Bull, maybe we should be very careful of how we get this explained. For me, Red Bull has no any responsibility of nobody. Hannes, Willy, Guido, we are just personalities who had this passion for our sport. And if you look to all those other, for example, GoPro or all these cameras who are making possible to see, and I think they are also big part of how fast sports grows, as many people could start looking into YouTube, thousands of times the same maneuvers. I think if you die, it was just the time that you leave this level of life. And it has nothing to do with a sponsor or however, whatever you want to. If a surfer dies in a wave, it wasn't the responsibility of his surfboard.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Good.
However, and if here I think it's just, we are maybe people we are not as normal that we get a normal. What is normal, being married or not married, having children or not, give them an education that they in future are of their own life, and during this time you give your children, you transmit what you can. I have 4 children, and my oldest daughter will be 18 now, and then I have my son, which is 14, and he just make me crazy right now, and then I have my daughter, and then I thought, what will be of them? They are unique, and they are just through a process. And then I think back to my life, how I grew up, and I was the same stupid asshole when I was 14, 15 years old, and I start discovering what I have my balls between my legs, and so on. So, then it comes the time that you grow and you feel a passion of do something. And if it's maybe doing a very good meal and you are a chief kitchener, maybe you will die as you are fat or not. And if you are a diver, a sub diver, a mountaineering, you are a motorcycle, you are a surfer, you are a hockey player, however, whatever you are doing, but you are doing it as it's your passion, then nobody can be responsible, which could be a clothes sponsor or a energy drink sponsor in my personal case. But what I give a very, very big thanks to Red Bull in this place, that it's gives to many people an opportunity to grow through the passion you had. But not only give you money, you must have also you must have a characteristic to be an athlete of Red Bull. And this is not be a crazy man, as you can see in Red Bull today. This is so big, a very, very big aspect of different kind of sports, artists, of art in every kind of view. So there where I'm a little bit sensible when people said, Red Bull is responsible that this or this guy dies. No, I'm absolutely not agree with this.
Andy, at the very end of your movie, your wife says, it can be really hard to be in a relationship with someone who has so much passion, who's so driven. And I'm smiling as I say this right now because my girlfriend would say the same about me. Because we tend to be very distracted with the things that we are passionate about. So I think I know what she's saying, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Oof. Right now, at these days, it's a very sensible point to talk with me about. As you know, in a relationship, you have highs and a little bit less highs. As you have a nice thermals, you can have a very big sink rate. It's especially in my case, and how I can tell this, it's very difficult to explain myself, and even in English. But what I want to say is, after my life today, I'm very thankful about all this experience I have done in any kind of view. I don't know if you know that 1 year ago I was high catched in my home. I get into a very bad fight, and I was nearly killed.
About this.
One more. And I thought, now look, I will just do what I want to do and what it makes me feel right. I will not go anymore to any social bullshit stuff where you must go to visit, you must go to friends, you should go to this concert, and you must go out and eat, and you should do this and this, you should go to theater. No, I'm a very big egoist. Mm-hmm. Why? Why I try to live my life now more than even before, day per day, as I like to do it. Yeah, I have the chance to leave 50 meters from the hangar and from the sewing factory. I like the part of my house, cooking, to prepare good meals, to eat well, to get good wine to drink, to make sport, to use my time doing things I like to do, I love to do, to create this art that I'm creating here, which is so, it's so utopic, actually, this Air Atelier. But it's unique. It's like an art I'm creating. And I feel how many people starts to understand why I'm so making important that if you want to start flying 747 Boeing Airbus airline pilot, you should start paragliding when you are 16, 14. So this is my art, and I live for that. So I didn't care about concert, about going out, about all these things. And that's where my wife really had very, very big heart, and she let me do. And of course, she's not my first wife. I was married, I was divorced, then I get a friend, then she dies, then I get a mother, then she leaves, then I have now with Lily. And yeah, I think people who are passionate on what they are doing, they have not working hours. I must not start at 8 to 12 and from 2 to 6 or however. I'm 24 hours with my head in what I'm doing, creating. A part, of course, interesting what goes on the world, on Earth, the human problems, social problems. I look a little bit into it. I feel into it. I cannot change, but I can feel like that what I'm doing, it's something with discipline, continuity. Flying a caravan with 18 skydivers behind, or jump out with a wingsuit, or make a paragliding tandem flights, you must be very responsible what you're doing. You are responsible of person. You are getting into this big air pool, to not say swimming pool. That's how I try to explain to the people when they jump from the aircraft, for example. You are not jumping into that. You're jumping into a big swimming pool, and you will swim with your body, you will fly through. This is the part where I feel that I'm maybe very egoist in one part, but I must really take all the advantage I can take from my experiences. As I know that, however, it's so quick that the lights or the life turns off. And I know that, if you are in very bad situation personally, like I was, after 4 operations, getting out and home and wheelchair, you are thinking sometimes to kill yourself, yeah. But I know that I have no right to do that. I have so many accidents which I survived, and then this last one where I was catched up in my home and I have to fight through my life in front of my family. I thought, I must live until who is in charge of our life. People said God, others said other gods, however it is, just turns off the life and we goes to the other level. So all my friends I lost, and my woman, my biggest love, which was Bettina, I think they are just in another level. They win. They are in an advance. They has passed just to the other place which nobody really knows who it is or how it is. So that's why maybe it helps also when we lost somebody. We should not be so frustrated. At least we should be frustrated as they has win us. They are just in another place, and we must still go and, cooking, eating, suffering sometimes, loving other times, and even see you start to be older and older and older, and so it's a very sensible point of discussion, and I don't know if I can really explain what I want to, but that's what I can say.
I think that was a perfect explanation. And I just lost a very good friend of mine, one of my supporters in the X-Alps, and I kept thinking about this quote as I was going through, and still am, of course, going through all that. You always are, but pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice, and I liked that. That you said, we don't really know where these people go, but we're all going to find out, aren't we? It's inevitable.
Of course, that's the big question of our life that nobody really can respond, but we know and we feel it in our heart. I think this is a natural process.
Andy, if you could rewind the clock, let's just divide by half. You're 52. If you could maybe give us some perspective of maybe where you were, but if you could divide in half, let's rewind the clock to in you're 26 years old. Where were you? What were you doing? And if you could do anything differently, if you could go back in time and say, Andy, I'm your 52-year-old self, and this is what you need to do differently, what would it be?
How many things I would try to be different? Yeah, that's the big discussion I have with my mother. My mother, she wanted that I make, university, and I said, never. And I think this was my best decision that I have done. I lived in when I left home with 19, I just got a small car with a bed and all my stuff in. And that was my home. And my home went from parking place to parking place, from surf spots to surf spots, traveling down to the Canary Islands to Morocco to surf, to make experience. And then I got into this paragliding world, when it really starts. And I said, wow. And I must say, I will never change this choice having taken at this time. Mm. Then I married very soon. This was a big influence also of, you should marry it. As you live with a woman, you should marry her. But she wanted then to get a house. And I said, no, never. And get compromised with the bank, No, I said, taking some debts with the bank and all this shit. But maybe, I don't know what I would really change to, Sometimes I'm asked me, have been as egoist as I am. I have no sister, no brother, so I was an own child, maybe this makes also, then I grow up in one place and another place and another place. So I never had really friends, long-time friends, as when you burn in a town and you grow with the kindergarten, first school, second school, university, and then you are 20 years old and you get friends from 20 years. I never had this. So if I could really change back to more than 26, I would ask my father to make 3 or 4 more children so I could grow up in a bigger family. And this could have changed my being. And maybe today I would be, I don't know, an airline pilot. I don't believe.
No way.
I don't know. But when I was 26, I was just, in love with Hannes. Hannes and I, we went brothers. Hannes for me was my brother. He's still my brother, actually. Although he leaves this earth 1.5 years ago in a helicopter accident, But what I have lived with him and this pure this pure living on a patient to go and paragliding and developing and go back and cut a new profile and new sewing and make a new line. In my time, we didn't have any computers. We shaped a half part of a wing with foam to get the cloth around, to get the development of a cell, of a bottom and the top cell, and we make the lines by ourselves. When I look days, all those young pilots, they never fabricated by themselves a full line set, for example. And I have sewed nearly 60 paragliders from zero to flying them in the prototype parts, change the wing tips, get another bottom cells open. These are hours of sitting there, cutting and sew again and inflating in the wind and try and fly and be frustrated. And then at least the day we arrived to 126 with the progress, that was, and to grow up and to start to make maneuver and be you are a pilot, you are a captain of an airplane, paragliding pilot. You are in charge of an airplane. So I must really say, when I look back now, I take the best choice.
I like that.
Doing what my patient had. What I should have maybe been a little bit more diplomatic. I should be not as much. That's what we talk with my woman all the time. I'm very impulsive. Yeah.
Little less fire.
This is the Latin. Yeah, I think this is the Latino part I have from my mother, from Italian. Magazzo, managgia. It makes me sometimes a little bit, cooking my blood. And another part, it's just an art of being. I'm not making living on costs of a state. I never ask money on a bank. I never went, stealing something or living in account of other people and person who are just getting in touch with me to get information of flying. I'm really open to transmit, to give out. I have made so many safety courses just for free, as I just wanted that people learn flying, that they can really feel how it is flying nice and be a safe pilot. Yeah. And maybe I should have even a little bit more power at this time when I am think back. This is maybe very sensible what I will say right now. But I was very angry about the flying schools at this time, The flying schools, they just want to make flight very quick to the people and sell them a paraglider where they have huge part of money they get in their pockets. But there was never a real, I think it's still a big problem. The schools is just they just sell a quickie flying experience. And they just want to give you and sell you as fast as possible the paraglider. That's where they have the most, ¿cómo se dice la palabra?
The margin is. Yeah, the
benefit. Yeah. The margin, yeah. But then the school, why they don't learn the people how to inflate the paraglider, how to inflate reversed. I use the paraglider for my students to explain them why something is flying, what is the suspension, and when, and how it works. And through the paraglider, it's the best tool you can do it. Yeah, and I saw that then the schools, the only thing what they want is, it must be as simple as possible, and as simple as possible, they must have those licenses. And this makes for our sports a big dark shadow, which ends on accidents of people who never heard of different kind of factors, which are a very important part of our sport.
Yeah, this has been a big theme lately. I don't know why. It just keeps coming up lately on a bunch of the recent shows. It's just that it depends so much. There's no very few schools are teaching people to be an autonomous pilot. You know, you're just checking the boxes. You're going, okay, well they've done this, they've done that, they've done that. Okay, here's your license, and they're sending these people off with none of the requisite knowledge of being a pilot, and it's really I think it's really frustrating. There are very good schools out there, but I think it's so important that but there's a lot that aren't, and it's so dependent on the instructor you get, and it's a real I think it's a real problem in the sport, and I think you're like you said, it's also one of the reasons for so many accidents.
And it's still a big problem. When I talk with Alain Soler, who came 1 month, nearly 3 weeks here to my place now this summer, and we talked about all we suffered during all the process of certification and the safety aspect of a paraglider. But we could never make power that the safety aspect are the schools. And the schools must be more expensive than they are to give a more specific education and formation of paragliding pilots.
Yeah.
And they should have much more time. And it's still today the same problem. Yeah. And we still today have 3 or 4 different certification process with different kinds of certification ideas. And it's just ridiculous. And the sports is not safer. It's the same as it was 10, 20, 25 years ago. No. However, I just thought that for me, these are in the paragliding world, I can see this kind of things. But, what happens to me, and which is quite lovely, there are the paragliding pilot is one personality. Yeah. The skydivers, they are other personalities. Then you have the sailplane pilots. Then you have the aircraft pilots. Then you have the helicopter pilots. Yeah. And then, you have the balloon flyers. And then you have the hang glider pilots, which we are not anymore so much. We know why, but I really like hang gliding, actually. But what I want to go into, it's this different kind of personalities who practice those different kind of air sports activities. And maybe if you look into music, you have the guy who is a very good bassist. Another one is more on the violin, on the piano. You have a few of them. They are good in many kind of instruments, but they are not so much of them. And in the flying, I suppose it's very nearly the same. When I have an airplane, when they hear PPR pilot who came to start flying an aircraft, and they said him, now we go inflate a paraglider to make the sensibility of meteorologic, of the air, of the mass. When we start learning aerodynamics through a paraglider, he looks to you like, he feels. Or when I have a skydiver and I said, skydive student, we will start paragliding before we skydive, or during your first skydive tandem jumps, you will make paragliding first step school. And I'm fighting with the skydiver instructor as they said, no, nothing to do. You are just giving too many information to our students. And I said, but man, how you can jump out an aircraft, make free fall, and afterwards you open a paraglider and you can't fly this. Where exists this?
Yeah.
You can't believe how many discussions I have, and I'm sometimes thinking I'm really pissing outside the toilet. Why? What is happening?
Yeah, you wonder how many accidents could be prevented in the base and wingsuit world if if there were more paraglider pilots. I think when you have the reverse opening next to the
But of
wall, it's no
course,
big deal. If you're a pilot, you know what to do immediately. It's just not a problem.
look. If you ask Paul Gusselbauer, he's flying with
Hmm.
his Piper Cup, or I'm flying with a Caravan with a 900 horsepower turbine into the Andes. I fly same as a
Yeah.
paraglider.
Yeah.
Where's the wind from? How strong is the wind? Welly wind? Where I should not fly into, or however, your thinking process is so much richer as when you did not have free flight
Yeah.
before.
I have a great story for you. When when I was working with Paul on the Alaska project, he not Kenny, who is a paraglider and who really taught Paul how to fly his Cub and was very much a part of that whole project. But another guy was flying out to drop some gear to the camera crew one day, and Paul was up at. They both left the same place, and they were going out into the big mountains, out into the Alaska range, and the one guy who had been flying up in Alaska, Super Cubs and Beavers and Otters, I mean, very experienced airplane pilot, was at 6,000
Yeah.
feet, and Paul was at 14,000 feet, and the guy radioed him, Paul, how are you up there? And Paul said, I'm thermaling. What are you doing? I'm thermaling. I mean, in
Yeah.
one season, and I've told this story at the when we show North of Known and the film projects when I go on tour and stuff. But in one season, by the end of that summer, Kenny said that Paul was the best airplane pilot he'd ever seen in Alaska. And that was just in one summer, and that was because of Paul's paragliding background. He understood it naturally, and to
Course.
have an engine was just a bonus.
That makes me feel so happy listening these kind of stories. This confirms that I'm not
Yeah,
pessimist
no,
for.
it was
And
amazing to watch how good he got.
this is just the right. This is very very the
Yeah.
right stuff. And that's why then when I was here with Paul and we have so great time together. To feel that he's thinking the same way, and that's why I think my project, as utopic it makes some sense.
Andy, I want to be mindful of your time, and I just have one more. This has just been amazing, but I have one more question. You in the film, there's just so many amazing adventures. Your caravan trip from Salzburg, from Red Bull across Scotland and Greenland and northern Canada all the way down to Argentina, and your World Cup win in 2000, and your incredible accident with Hernan. I mean, there's just so many things there. And again, listeners, you got to see this movie. It's just fantastic. But I'd love for you to close with your greatest adventure. What now after this 30 something years of flight, what stands out the most? What journey, what adventure, what experience, what friendship?
As you saw before, we have a very windy day, and I have time enough. But to make it very short, this question, I think the biggest adventure I lived, it's my life. It's a very pure art of living my life. And in this, I have many very, very nice experiences with persons. And I think, the relationship I had with Hannes, he was my brother. I felt with him so strong, this art of being and all this characteristic he had, which I don't have, from what I wanted to get from him. And it's the same part he gets from me, this passion of flying. However, to get into be a Red Bull athlete since very beginning, as Dietrich sometimes sells Urgesteine. Yeah, Urgesteine means very old stones. To be part of this history, it makes me very, very proud. And to have now also these projects running with all these missions to have airplane instructors, skydive instructors, paragliding, flying, sewing, and so on. To mixing all those, it's like an orchestra. And then my family, be father of 4 children. My daughter, which will leave house now in the end of year. I'm the youngest one who had now 4 years. This is also a big part of my adventure. And now what I try to, it's just be a little bit more careful, but still doing what I really feel. For example, this wingsuiting, I just get through Sebastian Alvarez. He's a very big wingsuiter from Chile, and he came here, and I make several jumps with him, and I really could discover how to work, how it works, and now I'm just flipping with that. I don't think I would really do an approximity wingsuiting, but be with your body in this wingsuit is just amazing. It's just... But then I go to paragliding with my new prototypes that I can get and fish out from Advance, and I say, wow, I should maybe go back once to compete a little bit.
Yeah, the world would love to see that.
Young friends, and I was part of with Xavier Muriot when 91, when we start with the project of Paragliding World Cup. It starts together. Xavier Muriot and we started this project.
Legend.
And today it is what it is, of course, after several things. And so my biggest adventure is actually all my life.
I love it. Perfect answer. Andy, that was just such a treat, man. Such an honor. And I hope we get to share the skies together someday. It was just incredible to watch your movie and to share all that history, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for making this time available to your fans and our fans and the people that owe so much gratitude and owe so much to you for making this amazing sport that we are all so passionate about. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gavin, that you take me a part of this project you're doing with these broadcasts. And maybe just one thing I wanted to know, you talk several times about my film. There is the original one, which is called Airman, done really, really by ourselves. And then was Sharing the Sky, which is a little bit the same in an English and more short version. I still believe that the original version is a little bit more nicer version for all those people who get out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I watched both, and I agree. I'll have links to both in the show notes. But the long one is just terrific, and I think it's always better in the language that you speak. So I appreciate. I know this is probably hard to get through in English, but you're very articulate. That was fantastic. Thank you.
So thank you once more, Gavin, and I really hope to meet you one day somewhere out there in the big
I'm sure we will. It's a small world, isn't it? It's a small, big world. Thanks, Andy. Talk soon, and again, I really appreciate it, and best of luck to you down there and to all your beautiful children.
Thank you to all our listeners, and hang loose.
Cheers. I hope you enjoyed that. I had a smile on my face the whole time for that one. Such a legend in the sport. It's just amazing to sit down with Andy and hear all those stories. If you're getting something out of the show or one of the previous shows, or if you're just discovering the show, go back and check out the hours and hours and hours of great talks with so many incredible pilots. There's so much good advice there, and a lot of things to make you smile and a lot of things to make you better. Please do support the show. All we've ever asked for is $1 a show. You can do that as a one-off through PayPal. Go to cloudbasemayhem.com and you'll find the links for supporting the show. Don't just send us $1. Wait until you listen to 20 or 30 shows and then send accordingly, because PayPal takes a little chunk out of that, so $1 doesn't go very far. But we do have quite a bit of expenses. You can imagine this takes a lot of time. We love doing it. We love bringing it to you, but your support goes a long way. We really appreciate it. And you can also find on the Cloud Base Mayhem, we've got a new store now. You can buy a t-shirt or a hat with our little swag start there, which is pretty fun. All of that stuff's coming from Patagonia. It's all sustainably sourced and organic, and we hope you'll dig it. And you can also support us as a regular contributing member through Patreon, and that's patreon.com/Cloud Base Mayhem. At certain levels, you get all kinds of cool rewards, and there's where you can just kind of set it and forget it, and you only have to contribute when it's kind of automatic, but you only contribute when we put a show out. So thanks very much. We appreciate your support, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.